Like I said last time, Red Dwarf Series 6 was quite a change-up for the show, but it was also the most eagerly awaited series. 5 had been the show's most popular so far, and Grant and Naylor had been off doing other jobs, most notably the failed pilots for the American spin-off. Because of that, there was, and at the time, unprecedented 18-month wait between the series. The show had until this point come out like clockwork, but these delays were going to become very common. Series 5 had gained so many new viewers over the course of its run that the BBC requested an introduction of sorts for the newcomers, to make sure that they're up to speed. This, mixed in with the big changes Grant and Naylor decided to do, meant Series 6 was nearly a soft reboot. Gone is the Red Dwarf itself. It was hijacked by someone after Series 5. Why? To inject more danger into the show. Now they have to fight for survival and scrounge for supplies. And why in universe? They don't know. Someone just nicked it. And the eventual reveal in Series 7 of who is really stupid. Holly is gone with Red Dwarf. Grant and Naylor decided she was surplus to requirements, as Crichton had the science stuff and Kat was a good source of stupid jokes. The style of comedy changed a bit too. More running jokes were included, like Rimmer misquoting Space Corps directives, or Kat declaring that X is deader than something unfashionable.
That's it, I'm invoking Space Corps Directive 68250.
68250? But sir, surely that's impossible without at least one live chicken and a rabbi.
The entire panel's deader than A-line flares with pockets in the knees.
This change was done mainly because Red Dwarf had a history of scripts that were barely finished before they began filming, and it made writing easier and faster for Grant and Naylor. The director this time around was Andy Diamanda, who came from a puppet background thanks to his work on Spitting Image, so he lasted the whole series and could handle the effects stuff just fine. This was the series to win an international Emmy, and it aired between the 7th of October and the 11th of November 1993. Episode 1 is Sirens, and it opens 200 years after the theft of Red Dwarf. Lister and Kat have been in stasis, and Rimmer's been offline while Crichton's been operating the ship. They've all been awakened because Crichton thinks they've finally found a chance to get the ship back.
Who the hell are you?
I drink, and I smoke, and I have cold curry sauce for breakfast. I sound like some barely human, grossed-out slime ball.
Oh, it's all flooding back, is it, sir?
Lister getting amnesia from stasis was so stuff could be restated for the new audience. I'm not sure it was necessary, but what do I know? I know that telling the audience that Lister's a slob wasn't necessary. Amnesia also didn't happen in the pilot after 3 million years of stasis, but maybe Starbug's stasis booths are a bit crap. Starbug's interiors have been redesigned since the last series. It's never stated, but I think we can assume that Crichton made himself busy over the last 200 years. Red Dwarf has to circumnavigate an asteroid field, but Starbug is small enough to go right through it and catch up. Kat's the main pilot now because of his superior reflexes, which is fair enough. But they've also decided that he can smell stuff through the depths of space and more efficiently detect stuff than the scanners.
Something's coming.
Nothing on the Navicom.
I can smell it. Something big. I'm getting nothing either. These nostrils never lie.
The reasons why this is silly would be longer than the video, so I'll just say that it's nice that he finally has a defined role and isn't just running around doing his own thing the whole time. The asteroid field's full of derelict ships that, according to the net, include models from Space 1999, Star Trek, and Alien. The ships and their crews have been wiped out by a terrible type of Gelf, the Sirens.
The poor devil must have scrawled it in his death throes using a combination of his own blood and even his own intestines.
Who would do that?
Someone who badly needed a pen.
Sirens are like giant insects that use their telepathy to mess with your perception to bring you down to one of their asteroids, before stripping your ship and sucking your brains out. Luckily, they know all this, so all they need to do is fly straight until they get out of range of their powers. They ignore messages from the planet of the supposed space babes and a Captain Tau, played by Nita Dobson, a famous British TV actor at the time. Captain Tau was named after the captain of the Red Dwarf in the US pilot, and she's accompanied by Kachansky, played by C.P. Grogan for the first time since Series 2 and the last time overall. She's recast the next time we see her. All in all, I think her appearance here is a bit of a pity, as it destroys an accidental piece of genius. The Inquisitor's work was undone last series, so after that episode everyone reverted to their previous useless selves. If we didn't see the original Kachansky now, it would have been evidence that the Chloe Annette version was the real original Kachansky, was deleted, replaced, and then returned. These obvious tricks with the Sirens don't work, but they're forced to land by a flaming asteroid. Lister heads out to take care of one of the legs, but a siren arrives, and after the good stuff, drink that in, they end up with 2 Listers aboard Starbug.
How many times? He's the siren and I'm me. How can you believe this? It doesn't even look like me.
They quickly work out which one's fake because the siren can play the guitar. You see, it read Lister's belief that he could play and it took it for reality. Siren Lister's hands when playing were Phil Manizarus from Roxy Musics. The hands were originally supposed to be Brian May from Queen, but while he couldn't cameo, his wife, Anita Dobson, could. Anyway, the siren survives and escapes into the engine room, where it turns into Crichton's creator, played by Jenny effing Agutter, and forces him into a garbage compactor.
I'm almost annoyed.
And he finally gets his blunt force trauma-based revenge. Here's something funny noticed while editing. There's a misplaced frame between these two shots of Crichton. Apparently the BBC puts less effort into editing than even me. This is one of the best guest cast in the show's history. Anita Dobson, actual Kachansky, Richard Ridings, Jenny Smegging Agutter. Overall, a great episode. I know a lot of people think it's pretty weak, but I'm not one of them. Next is the Legion. They're still following Red Dwarf, and the supply situation has got even worse. Anyway, Kat has detected something weird and possibly dangerous approaching, and fast.
Step up to red alert.
Sir, are you absolutely sure? It does mean changing the bulb.
They're surrounded by an energy net that drags them towards a space station. It's human-made, but from long after the launch of Red Dwarf. Its automated systems mistook Starbuck for a supply ship. Since they need all the salvage they can get, they go aboard and meet Legion, played by Nigel Williams, in a costume so tight he literally had to be sewn into it. Legion knows them all by name and instantly starts fixing the crew, rewiring Rimmer's light bee to make him solid. You can tell he's solid because his costume's blue. A light bee is a small machine that buzzes around inside Rimmer, projecting him, allowing him to leave the ship without a holocage like he used in Series 2. Anyway, Legion also removes Lister's inflamed appendix. The appendix thing is more evidence for the every few series as Red Dwarf skips to another parallel universe idea, because in Thanks for the Memory it was revealed that Lister had his appendix out before he left Earth. The novel's explanation for this mess-up is that Lister was born with 2 appendixes, which is probably the laziest explanation possible. It's not even as good as having his DNA rewritten a few times and DNA regrew it. Legion's cybernetic and once lived on the station with some of the finest minds of the 24th century. He makes them a traditional 24th century meal, a meal that's traditionally eaten with anti-gravity chopsticks and served with telekinetic wine, which is hilarious. Anyway, Legion explains that the crew are to be his guests. Permanently. They're each given a room that's been perfectly designed for them. It's as though Legion knows them better than they know themselves. Anyway, Lister has a plan to escape. Alas, it relies on Legion never having seen Revenge of the Surfboard and Killer Bikini Vampire Girls.
You truly believed I would be deceived by that schlock plan from Revenge of the Surfboarding Killer Bikini Vampire Girls?
Okay, time for the big reveal. Legion is a Gestalt entity. He's generated by the station out of whoever is on board. The great art and science on the station was made in the 24th century when he was surrounded by geniuses. He can't let them leave because that would kill him, but Crichton works out a very clever workaround that involves knocking everyone else unconscious.
Permission to test a supposition.
Granted.
Which is hilarious and makes perfect sense in context. I swear. Legion not only lets him go, but also gifted them a star drive that they can use to reach the Red Dwarf in seconds. And it does. They just forgot to properly attach it to the ship. Another great episode, I have no complaints. Even the extremely basic CGI works. Nigel Williams is an actor we should hear more often. Great voice.
The next hint of insurrection, and the scalpel ends up here.
You might notice I'm being more vague than previously. That's mainly because the stories have become much more complicated than the early days, and I'd really rather avoid spoiling everything. Next is the Emmy Award-winning Gunman of the Apocalypse, generally considered the best episode of the series. It opens in VR. Off-screen they found a simulator that's hopefully less hassle and better than life. This one operates more like the holo-novels from Star Trek. You're given a story and a character and allowed to do your thing. There's even a groin attachment, so that's sometimes literal. Anyway, they need to turn the game off because they've entered a simulant hunting zone and have to enter silent running. Here's a continuity issue. Rimmer was filmed in his red soft light costume, so they had to throw in a line explaining that he can go from soft light to hard light at will. Insert dick joke here. Anyway, a simulant ship found them, so they need to think fast. And fast they think.
Incoming.
I am Tarka Dal, an ambassador of the great Vendelian Empire.
We will not rest until our task is completed.
Lister?
Somehow it doesn't work, and the simulants knock them unconscious before upgrading their ships so it will be a sporting fight. They're given a 2-minute head start, but Cat realizes the only way to win a cat and mouse fight is...
Don't be the mouse.
And so strike first. Which works. The simulant ship is crippled, but it gets a computer virus to Starbug. Crichton downloads it into himself for analysis and to come up with a cure. The others hook Crichton up to the VR game so they can enter his mind and assist him. Since the episode's called Gunman of the Apocalypse, his subconscious appears as a small western town. Crichton's the sheriff and the virus are a gang of outlaws. This episode was written when Grant and Naylor visited the town of Laredo in Kent, a small Wild West town built for and by reenactors. There are 24 buildings and it's as authentic as you can get in the south of England. Crichton's not doing well. He's forgotten who he is drinking heavily, and is trying to leave town rather than face the virus, which will mean death in the real world. Luckily, they have video game skills. There's 10 minutes until Crichton's gunfight with the virus, 10 minutes to remind him of who he is and finish the program. Will they survive long enough to manage it? Yes, but I'm not telling you how. Anyway, they spent much of the episode stuck flying towards disaster thanks to the virus, so... Man, they built ships to last in the late 21st, 22nd, 23rd centuries. This is a good episode. It had clever use of tech and a couple of twists that you don't see coming. Though I'm not a Western fan, so I'm not as in love with it as a lot of other people. I think my favourite part was Lister, Rimmer and Kat's attempts to escape the game after the virus took their powers and locked them in.
I got one of the gloves off! And a boot too!
Oh, brilliant. Now you're paralysed completely down your left-hand side.
The guest cast is great, I've no complaints. Laredo looks spectacular. Only the grass and dampness break the immersion. Next is EMOHAWK, POLYMORPH 2, originally scripted as POLYMORPH 2 EMOHAWK. They changed it because they thought it looked like a football result. This is sort of a sequel to Polymorph. It's not about the polymorph left at the end of that episode, but a different polymorph, and that's enough to make it a sequel apparently. We open with Rimmer running an early morning emergency drill and Kat and Lister managing to break their best time.
1 hour, 17 minutes, 39 seconds.
Hey, not bad. And I bet we could get it down to 1:16 if we cut out that fourth round of toast.
They come under attack by some automated space police for raiding derelict ships and are chased into the Gelf zone. Gelfs are the genetically engineered, sometimes people that are one of the stand-ins the show has for aliens. And automated or not, the space police wouldn't dare follow.
We've lost it. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong panel.
I love how the fire manages to stay on the outside of the ship. Space is really flammable. No one told the space police that they wouldn't dare follow, and so they start shooting up the place. But Starbug soon manages to escape.
It's got an ocean. Can you get us there? Does mouse shit roll?
They head for a moon to lay low. They're really badly damaged, but most things are repairable. What's not repairable? The oxygeneration units, so if they want to breathe in space, they're going to have to trade with the locals. The Gelfs live in a redressed medieval village under the control of their feared leader, Ainsley Harriott, the TV chef. I'm actually not kidding.
Roll it in there, squeeze that in there. That's beautiful, boy. Really get in there. That's lovely.
Oh dear.
In exchange for the oxygeneration unit, they want Lister to marry the chief's daughter. The hot one.
I do. You may kiss the bride, sir.
What about?
Lister's Gelf wife was played by an actor called Steve Wickham, technically making this one of the earliest interracial gay kisses in TV history. The plan is to wait until everyone's asleep and return to rescue Lister. It's messed up a bit when Lister's new wife won't accept that he has a headache.
Change your plan! Like it!
Nickel!
The chief sends the EMOHAWK after them to get revenge for the insult. Now it's more polymorph action as the EMOHAWK takes Kat's cool, turning into Dwayne Dibley from Back to Reality. Dwayne was a really popular character, and Grant and Naylor wanted to bring him back since Back to Reality first aired. Originally they were toying with the idea that Kat would be infected by some weird space virus that would turn him into Dibley when he got stressed. The EMOHAWK then targets Rimmer and sucks at his negativity, leaving him as the man, the myth, the immaculately coiffured Ace Rimmer.
Let's track it down before it harms Critters and Dave.
Together with Lister and Crichton, they search out the EMOHAWK, planning to freeze it, extract the emotions to cure Kat and Rimmer, and then space it.
Chain, it's moving!
Sir, try and remain calm. You're experiencing a classic knee-jerk paranoid reaction to a terrorist situation. It's essential at this time that we hit the wall!
I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but I like how Rimmer and Kat are front and back. Since they've already been fed on, they're unlikely to be attacked again, so we're kind of being human as shields. Anyway, with the runtime running out, they quickly dispatch the EMOHAWK, ready to cure Kat and Rimmer.
Would it be possible for me to stay like this for another 24 hours before I have to return as that, ghastly maggot?
Not sure why they need to cure Rimmer, though. They Should probably have had a line explaining that to cure one of them, they had to cure both of them or something. As nice as it is to see Ace and Dwayne again, I feel this is one of the weaker episodes in the series. Not to say it's bad, it's just not as good as some of the others. Plus, overall, it's less original or interesting than Polymorph. Next is Rimmerworld, and it has an interesting place in continuity. It was meant to be episode 4, right after Gunmen of the Apocalypse. They even share a guest star, but because it was held back for episode 5, they created a continuity connection between it and the series finale, and I'll explain how later on. The crew have found the simulant ship from Gunmen of the Apocalypse, crippled, devastated, but still sort of standing. It's in such a bad shape that even a loud noise could tear it apart, but supplies are low, and so they're heading in anyway and hoping that none of the simulants survived. Fat chance of that. You might wonder why a ship full of killer robots would have food supplies, but they like to keep their victims alive as long as possible for torture purposes. They're found by the simulant second in command and the ship is destroyed, setting off the story proper. Crichton, Lister and Kat escape via teleport, and after a brief sojourn to the past,
Are they totally surreal now? I'm very cross. Pardon my paradox.
End up in Starbug, while Rimmer's in an escape pod heading for a wormhole and beyond that, the nearest habitable planet. But thanks to the wormhole, it'll be 600 years before Starbug can rescue him.
A desert planet. The only life forms, the most basic single-cell protozoa and me. Relationships would be difficult, but not impossible.
The pod has terraforming equipment, so Rimmer sets it going and starts creating his own clones. When Starbug arrives, 600 years later, there's a whole Rimmer society. It punishes any deviation from the Rimmer template. Charm, courage, and decency are outlawed. Now, I wish this had been a two-parter, because I think a rebel army of Ace Rimmers seeking to overthrow the government would be hilarious. Oh well.
This might sound like a bit of a corny line, but take us to your leader.
How could you?
Dear Lord, what created such foulness? Is this the product of a marriage twixt woman and gerbil?
The H has become a symbol of authority, and the original Rimmer has been locked in the dungeons for centuries. His clones betrayed him, tried and failed to kill him, and eventually just threw away the key.
Can you imagine a society composed entirely of me?
I'm trying not to. The last time I did that, it took me a week to dry the mattress.
Now, this scene is one of the show's best ever jokes, but it's way too long for me to show you, so just trust me and watch the episode. Anyway, they use a teleporter to escape, accidentally landing in the future, where Rimmer reveals that something hideous has happened to Lister.
Rimmerworld was weeks ago. We're far more concerned at the moment about the quite hideous thing that's happened to Lister.
This is where the episode fits in with the last episode of the series. It wasn't supposed to. Originally this was just a joke and Lister would walk in after they teleported away. But they saw an opportunity to connect it with the series finale. Anyway, I really like Rimmerworld. It's not the best episode of the series, but it has more than a few great jokes. Though it is basically a much larger redo of Me Squared. But I forgive that because it's better than Me Squared. While rewatching this, I realised that male clone Rimmer kissing female clone Rimmer is Chris Barry as female clone Rimmer and a woman playing male clone Rimmer. So that's a gay kiss in about 3/4 of the ways you can look at it, incest in 4/4, and queer as hell in 6/4. Anyway, out of time, the series finale and the last episode of the show before it goes on its first lengthy hiatus. Now, even though Grant and Naylor deliberately scripted Series 6 to be more formulaic because they got bored of having to panic and pull a script out of their asses right before filming, they still had to panic and pull a script out of their asses right before filming this. So that worked brilliantly. The script arrived so late that they had to use autocue and idiot boards for some scenes. According to Robert Llewellyn, they changed some of his lines seconds before the cameras rolled. They've lost Red Dwarf, but found an ominous patch of stellar fog. There's a loud bang as they hit something and Lister's knocked unconscious. He's taken to the medibay and Crichton finds out the terrible truth. Lister's a mechanoid.
He's a what? There's no doubt about it. He's entirely mechanical, a 3000 series, made in Taiwan.
Even though he's given birth. Not only is he a mechanoid, but he's an earlier model than Crichton. Human-looking ones were unpopular and the whole line was recalled and replaced. Some escaped detection by wiping their memories and assimilating into human society. Anyway, Crichton takes the chance to enslave Lister, because you would, wouldn't you?
You call those triangular sandwiches? Did you use a set square? I think not.
Okay, say.
Not that any of that matters. Certain test ships launched hundreds of years after the Red Dwarf had such powerful technology on board that they had to be protected from looters, and so were surrounded by stellar fog and minefields of unreality.
So we just crashed through an unreality pocket?
Which created a false reality, making us believe Mr. Lister was... oh my.
Sir, how many times can I apologize? I have offered to mince myself. What more can I do?
They continue the journey, hitting other bubbles, one where the cat's erased from existence, one where they're all furries, and one where they're in a shitty green screen. It takes 3 days, but they make it to the ship in the centre, a 28th century time ship.
Bingo! We've got ourselves a time machine.
This is apparently a huge deal, even though they usually end up time travelling once a series. And need to remind you, twice in the last episode. And after hooking it up, they're hailed by another starbug. It's themselves from 15 years in the future, who also found a faster-than-light drive so they can travel anywhere and anywhen. The future double's time drive has developed a fault over the years, so they need to copy some components. Rimmer's fat and old, Cat's old and fat, Crichton wears a wig, and Lister's a brain in a vat.
Sir, you look terrific. I was expecting something much worse.
Remember the hideous thing that happened to Lister at the end of Rimmerworld? Foreshadowing. I gotta say, looking at Back to Earth, made 16 years later, they really nailed what the crew would look like in a decade and a half. Also, time-travelling future asshole dwarfers. Did Lister meet these guys in Stasis Lake? We never got confirmation that Kachansky died in the disaster in the pilot. Maybe she was rescued by asshole future Lister and later died in whatever accident left him a brain in a vat. Anyway, Lister rigged the Mediscan to operate like a camera to snoop in their future selves.
That is the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. What happened to my butt?
They're horrified to find out that having all of time and space to fly around in has seen them making friends with some of the worst people in history.
You're good friends with the Hitlers? It's just a social thing.
Heil, honey.
Heil, honey.
Heil, honey.
Heil, honey.
Heil, honey.
Hello.
I'm home.
The younger versions can't stand this future, so decide to change it at the barrel of a bazookoid if need be. The older versions would rather not exist and be trapped together in deep space like the younger selves, and so...
Our future selves are attacking us.
They're nuts.
In the ensuing battle, Lister, Cat and Crichton are killed before Rimmer realises how to get out of this. Destroy the time drive. No time drive, no future selves. Unfortunately, the future selves destroy Starbug before it works. Series 7 was already ordered before they made this, so they didn't think it was a big deal to replace the original ending, Rimmer's plan succeeds and they all drink wine made from piss, with this cliffhanger. But it took 4 years for Series 7 to air. There was no way the Series 7 opener was ever going to live up to this cliffhanger. But it still could have been better. But that's for the next video. Out of Time is an absolute classic. A textbook example of a deadline and panic pushing Grant and Naylor to do some of their best work. Just the unreality bubbles and the future selves could have been their own episodes, but it doesn't feel overstuffed. Another great series, though not quite as good as 5, Legion and Out of Time are probably the best episodes, and EMOHAWK is probably the worst. But it is a strong series, and it would easily be top of some other, less good series. Like the next one. This was the end for Grant and Naylor, as Rob Grant decided to move on to other projects. See you later for Series 7.
It's cold outside, there's no kind of atmosphere, I'm all alone, more or less. Let me fly far away from here.
Teaspoon of that curry, here we go. Mix that up and pop that inside your chicken.
I see, yeah,
That's
right.
it. I know what he's doing! He's